get more insight on what's happening here with Oladejo Adeyemi, the Associate Director for Commercial Practice at Analysing Nigeria. He joins me now on the line. Thank you so much for your time today, Oladejo. And let me get your take on what on the developments playing out here with this surcharge.
All right, thanks for having me, Kenneth. I think what is happening, really is just the general reaction, from citizens, and you would appreciate that issues bordering on fuel and its pricing in Nigeria traditionally has been quite an emotional one. But there have been some clarifications that the government has made with respect to this. And I mean, those are the areas we are going to be providing additional clarity on, in our conversation this afternoon.
All right, let's get the needed clarity. I see that Taiwo Idele says that the tax was not introduced by the current administration, but rather it was introduced in 2007.
Absolutely correct. So the challenge with this particular provision is, I mean, part of the things that this tax reform has sought to do is to ensure that there is harmonization, across board, across several of the legislations that we have. So far, as far back as 2007, the FEMA Act has actually provided in Section 14(1) the H subsection, saying that there would be 5% on the purchase of these products. In fact, the Act further specifies how the amount should be utilized in terms of 60% being dedicated towards repair of state-related roads, why 40% should go towards federal roads. But the challenge is over the years, past administrations have not been able to implement, this provision, considering the very delicate nature that this issue, has had, in the country. In fact, it was interesting to know that even the PPPR pricing template did not even, capture it, into existence. So what that had meant is that this provision had been there, but of course, the issue of fuel pricing has been quite a sensitive one, as you would agree with me. So over the period, the previous administrations have actually not, implemented that provision. So what has happened now is rather than allowing the provision lie fallow, Section 196 of the Nigerian Tax Act, which is part of the Reform Act, then specifies that some acts will be repealed, while some acts will be amended. Now, this particular act of the FEMA Act was amended to have that section scrapped, and then these surcharge is then introduced, into this Nigerian Tax Act under Chapter 7 of it, and that is in fact the only item that you have in that section, in that chapter. So that is really what the issue is. It's a case of having a provision that has been silent, that has been dormant, that is revenue seeking, but had really never been implemented, now being inculcated into a more comprehensive tax law, such that everyone can know whatever what needs to be done with respect to any tax or any levy that has to do with income generation. That's pretty much what the history is, and that's how we found ourselves here.
All right, now let's get into the implementation and in terms of what the law says here. I understand that it's not going to take effect automatically, but speak to how we can expect this to come about.
Okay, the expectation really is that some of the things that bedeviled the previous provision as we used to have it in the FEMA Act is the fact that they didn't specify, the law didn't specify the party to collect, and all of that. Now, in terms of what you have now, you don't have that specification, being explicitly made in the provision. In fact, what you have currently is that in the law, in the Nigerian Tax Act under that Chapter 7, is that the order would be issued towards this, such that it will not just be a case where you are just going to wake up and find out that this is already in existence. So an order will be issued, by the presidency, and you would also have guideline issued by the FRS as to how this would really pan out, so that people will know what to expect. The good thing also about this is that household items, such that the impact when this order is eventually issued, the impact is cushioned on regular Nigerians and everyone that is going to be consuming certain product that should otherwise have been part of this, but those items have been excluded in terms of cooking gas, in terms of clean energy sources, and the likes of that. There are about 4 different products that should otherwise have been part of this that have been clearly, exempted even in that particular provision. So we expect that anytime this is going to be implemented, what we've heard from the committee is that, from the committee chair, is that of course the government is responsible enough. The president is passionate about the citizens, so it is expected that all of those things are put into consideration before the order is issued. The wrong assumption that this is going to kick effect by 1st of January 2026 is quite
All right, let's talk
incorrect.
about.
That is not what the law says. Yeah.
Okay, but because I want to get into the impact on the key stakeholders here. We're seeing the labor unions here threatening to ban tools if the government fails to scrap this surcharge. Would you say it's a lack of communication or a lack of understanding of the process, or not having enough stakeholder engagement that is leading to this challenge here?
I think I will ascribe this outcry to the fact that we have very low trust quotient. Even when the government is saying this is what I intend to do, as Nigerians, and given the sort of economic hardship that Nigerians have kind of felt, by some of the policies that have been implemented, in recent past, that trust, that deficit that you have in the trust quotient, is primarily responsible for some of the agitations that we are seeing now. But the good thing as well is, by the time it is broken down into how this is going to impact, in terms of the fact that currently nothing is going to happen. So we are looking forward to 2 things. At what point will the president, issue such an order? And given that we have a president that would consider the generality of all of the impacts, it is expected that that is done at a time when there are more better outlook in terms of the economic realities, but that provision is just there to be properly harmonized into the expansive tax laws that we now have now, rather than having it as an isolated provision as it has been the case under the FEMA Act.